Okay, so the first topic is called radical restrictions. So radicals, we're going to be doing square root stuff. I don't think we do any cube root stuff. Okay, so working with radicals, square root function. Okay, what do I know about square rooting numbers? I know if I square root a positive number, what do I know? I know that I can do that. What about square rooting the number 0? Can you square root the number 0? Yeah, you can, right? Square root of 0 is 0. Okay, so we can square root positive numbers. We can square root 0. What do you know about square rooting negative numbers? You can't do that. Okay. So let's talk about this. Finding a restriction on a variable. When we talk about this, it's going to be a range of numbers at work. Okay, so in math, we express a range of numbers as an inequality. Can somebody tell me a number that is okay to put in here for x? Give me an example. There's a lot of numbers I can put in. Give me an example of one thing I can put in that would be okay. 2 is not okay. So if I put the number 2 in there, what is 2 subtract 7? -5. And then I'm going to go square root that. What happens? 2 doesn't work. 14. So would that work? 14 subtract 7, square rooting 7. Would it come out on my calculator? Yeah. It's a decimal, but it's a possible. What? You can put 7 in there. If you do 7, it's 7 subtract 7, 0. Would that be okay? Yeah. So let's make a conclusion. X has to be what? Use an inequality symbol. Think inequality. Greater than or equal to 7. X has to be that. You have to be greater than or equal to 7. Okay. Give me an example of any number that works. 0. 0 plus 5, that's good. Another number that would be fine. -5. That's still good. That is good because -5 plus 5 is 0, and I can do that. I can square root 0. Can you give me an example of a number that does not work in there? -6 is not good. So what's the conclusion? What do we have to make sure x is? Greater or equal to -5. Okay. The number that you're picking is always the one that makes it 0, and then you're picking which direction. Okay, give me an example of something that would work. 0 makes it 0. That's always one I have to consider. What kind of thing would make it positive and work if x was an example? 6? 6 would work, right? What would be a number that wouldn't work? I don't know, -3, putting a -3 in there doesn't work, right? Okay, so what can you conclude about x? X would have to be greater or equal to 0. Okay, give me an example of a number that works, that makes it positive. Give me a positive work. If x was what, it would stay positive. If x was 0, yeah. 8 minus 0, that's good. Okay, what's an example that would make it 0? If x was 8. So that works. 8 still works. Can you give me an example that would make it negative? If x was? If x was something like 10? Okay, 8 minus 10. That's bad, right? 8 minus 10. Now we're into the negatives. Okay, so x has to be what? Less. This time it has to be less than or equal to 8. Okay, does that make sense? Because if you take away more than 8, now we're into the negatives. Okay. On your answer key, I might have this written. I might also have this, so if you're confused, I just want to explain what is going on. This means the same thing. This says x has to be greater or equal to 0, and this says x can't be less than 0. But it all makes the same thing on a number line, right? On a number line, you could be at 0 or above it. This says x is not allowed to be less. They mean the same thing on a number line. Does that make sense on a number line? You see what a number line would be? You have to be here or above. This in your answer key, I have both, I think. This says I can't be there. Okay, that's restrictions. Done that.